Every piece begins long before I pick up a blade or a pattern. It begins here, in the choosing. And the choosing, I've come to understand, is everything. When I'm at the suppliers and I'm actually moving through the range available to me, it's actually not shopping, it's listening. It's looking at the size, the colour, the appearance of the skin, but it's also something beneath all of that. It's the quality you can feel. Before I can even name it, I actually feel it, which is why I run my hands over it. It's connecting with the essence of the animal and the life that it lived, and the tales of its life actually appear in the skin itself. Now, I don't know everything about the animal by looking at it, but I can tell if it had a happy, healthy, vibrant life by the quality of its fleece, the sheen in it. Even before I started working with hair on hides in particular, when I was just working with the finished kangaroo leather without the hair on it, I would actually look for skins that told the story of the life of the kangaroo. And not all of that is pleasant. Like, there were barbed wire wounds and grazes, but I actually liked seeing the story of its life. And the kangaroo, being a wild and free animal that roams across our lands, it's not necessarily a story or a life of comfort and ease and without challenge. So I really like that to appear in the skin. But I don't like to see suffering in the skin or even in the hair, and I don't like to see that the animal was malnourished, and that is actually visible. So I am very selective as to which skins I bring back with me based on several elements, and some of it is not anything I can articulate. It is just a feeling. This week when I went to buy some hides, I go to 2 different suppliers for this, sometimes a third, but this particular week was just the 2. I was actually really surprised at the energy and the feel in the kangaroo skins. Usually that is a hair on hide that I just go to because I love the fact that it's a wild free animal and it's a part of the National Parks and Wildlife Harvesting Program to keep the numbers down, to keep the ecosystem in balance. But I could see that the kangaroos hadn't lived well. There was a lack of luster in the fur, for starters, and there was a wiriness that just gave off the feeling that they were not eating as healthily as they had in the past. And there was also even the size and the shape of the skins, they just didn't look healthy. So at both of those suppliers, I chose not to take kangaroo this time. Had on my list to choose goat. I've been working with the goat more recently, and I actually quite love the goat as an animal, and the fact that it just, is such a resilient animal, and it always finds its way to food. Even up a tree, it will just find a way to be nourished. But there was one goat skin that I was really drawn to, and I'll see if I can find it in here easily. Oh yes, this one here. Because they have limited supplies of skins, and this was the end of this season's goat, but it had this beautiful pattern down its back. And I just loved this ripple pattern. And so I really wanted this skin and I wanted to work with it. And of course I do look at the size and what I can get out of it in terms of a vest, because I'm making vests with these. I'm not cutting them up into small pieces. And I do want to use as much of the skin as possible. So even this cute little curl in the sides, I love this curl. And that's on both sides. There's this cute little curl. So I loved this skin so much and I really wanted to use it, but it was the last one in that colour, and there weren't others that complemented it. I'd already chosen the long hair in pairs. I like to choose pairs so I know that I can get a vest out of it. And so this short hair was like a bit perplexing, because I was like, what am I going to do if I can't get another one? Do I just buy the one skin and use it for something else? And then the supplier suggested I look at calf. Now in the past I haven't chosen to work with calf. or cow, mainly because I've been wanting to work with wild animals, because that's a part of that whole freedom to explore and discover is a part of my inner essence and my way of expression. And so the actual skins have that energy about them. And the goat, like I said, being, climbing up a tree to get what it needs. I love that element in it. But because I really wanted this skin, I was open to looking at the calves. And I also source these through a supplier that deals with ethically, sustainably sourced animal skins, and even the processes they use to keep it environmentally friendly as much as possible. So that is a big part of my ethos. I said, okay, well, I'll have a look at the calves. We'll see what happens. And I ended up finding one that went beautifully with the goat skin and could work nicely as the front, and the goat being the back of the vest. As I was feeling into this calf skin, I could just feel like this calf had lived a good life. It just didn't feel like there was the suffering that I have associated with a lot of cattle raising for meat production. I like to source my meat as much as possible, that is in a way that is in honour of the animal, not just looking at what humans get out of them, but actually having them have a good life as well. So I felt like this calf had that, and I just went with what my body response was. I let my body guide me first, and then later on I come to understand with my mental capacity why I made that choice. And look, there are times like this week when I bought this skin that I came away from the supplier and I thought, have I just justified why I should buy this skin, even without having, without actually being in the presence of the animal being raised? Have I just justified it in my own height? Had I just fancifully justified it in my own mind so that I could fulfill the objective of making the vest? But I just, in the end, decided I have to trust my body's intelligence. In the same way that I trust my body when I sense danger or misalignment or potentially not being able to trust a situation or a person, or it's the same thing. Our bodies help us make that decision. So I'm working with my intuitive guidance and my body's responses when it comes to choosing these skins. And so I looked at this one and I selected this, and then the supplier brought out some other calf skins for me to look at, since I didn't want the kangaroo and I really wanted the Eastern Grey kangaroo. The colour of the Eastern Grey was what I was after for the projects I had in mind. And these calf skins have a very similar undertone to the Eastern Grey. Darker, but that same kind of mocha colour, so at its base. And as I was looking at these skins, I was like, just taken with how luminous they were and how just beautiful. They were really beautiful. And I felt like, again, that these calves had lived really well. So I ended up choosing to buy more of calves than I expected to. And they had very healthy hair on them. And so these are the types of things that I'm looking for. When I'm choosing a skin, it's not just about the colour, size, or the thickness of the skin. It is just as much about whether or not the animal itself lived a healthy, happy life. And calves have this beautiful exuberance to them when they're excited, and this genuine aliveness, and the way that they leap with that frisky leap. And I love that energy. And so that, and then with the goat, having the goat and a similar kind of frisky aliveness, that is the kind of energy I want to go into the products that I make. And it starts with the skin, and then it transfers into what I do with the skin to actually create the finished piece that then also gets passed on to the person who ends up wearing it. So the next part of my process when it comes to the foundations of what it is that I create, before I even start cutting with a blade or putting a pattern down to trace out onto the skin, is a part of that energetic element, and that is to clear the energy that might be infused in this, that might have a negative impact that I don't want to be carried forward in the final piece. Now, I have to say, for many years, I did this without truly understanding what was behind it. I didn't learn this practice through a lineage that I grew up with. I have always taken inspiration from ancient wisdom keepers, and in all of the lineages there is the working with a smoke and the cleansing of energy. And I do have an understanding, even without that being a mental understanding, I've always had an understanding that energy transfers from one thing to the other. And an example is, I have had a market stall in a particular market with a bread maker who I stopped buying bread from because at the beginning and at the end of every market, they were just really angry and just really rude to everybody around them. And I was like, I don't want that in the bread that I consume. So I take that same ethos with the products that I make. And not because I think that everything in life is just going to be happy-go-lucky and we never have any challenges. I'm not saying that at all, but because there is always going to be the contrast. But if I can bring these back into balance energetically, then I will do that, because I have no idea who touched these skins and what was infused into them in the process of preparing them to be a product to work with. And the transportation and all of that, there are layers that have been infused into this resource that I am now using to create my pieces with. So I like to bring it back to that neutral, balanced energy. The way that I do that is that I actually do smudge them with either Palo Santo or a white sage, and I use a little eagle feather to spread that smoke across each piece, and I do both sides of the piece. And it's just a beautiful practice for me to actually, one, know that I have done my part in bringing balance and harmony back into the energy of this skin before it gets transformed into a wearable piece that will then carry on into this new life as wearable art. So that is my process to start bringing back that energetic into balance. And I did the same with the toggles. These toggles that I have bought are real horn toggles. They are fair trade, ethically sourced horn toggles. And then I have some timber toggles that I bought. But again, this is from a supplier where many people have probably handled the item, and I just want to clear anything in there that doesn't need to be carried forward before I create the piece that is going to be the final piece that I will then hand on to the next person, or even for myself, wearing it myself. I have always felt that there is a difference in the frequency of what I wear, and I have done videos on that previously in terms of the frequency of fibre. The difference between when I wear something that is mostly acrylic compared to something that is mostly natural fibre. Not only does it breathe better when it's a natural fibre, but I also feel like it just has this beautiful energy to it when it's natural. And there is I can't even explain what it feels like to wear something that is not natural, but it does actually, for me, feel suffocating. Not just in terms of the heat that it generates, because it does, I do feel hot when I wear it. But even on a cool day, I still feel that there's some kind of block. There is a block that is created between me and my environment when I am wearing something synthetic, but there is a connectedness between me and my environment when I am wearing something natural. And that can be from linen, cotton, and hides like this. I just feel like it connects me to the environment, and I am a part of my environment. I am not separate from it. Whereas the polyester and acrylic feels like a harsh barrier and shield between me and the environment that I'm in. So I have a preference to wear natural fibres as much as possible. And so back to the energetics of it, so if that's the frequency that's carried through by the fibre itself, then the energy of a life well lived is also transferred and something that can be felt. And the harmony that creates. I was telling someone yesterday why I didn't choose the particular kangaroo skins and how they just looked unhealthy. And they said, how can you tell that? And I've described it in terms of the luster and the wiriness of it. Because if the animal doesn't naturally have wiry, coarse hair or fur, then to me that's an indicator. But just for a moment, let's think about someone who looks unhealthy. If you can see when your children are sick and they just have this drained look to them, or if someone has long-term illnesses that they have been constantly dealing with, they carry that in their look. Even the way someone walks can tell you whether or not they live open to life or closed off from life. So it's a similar thing with the animals and their skins, because that is their shield protection from the environment around them, or what unifies them with the environment around them. So, as humans, we've been conditioned to separate ourselves from our environment and shield ourselves from it, which is why a lot more polyester is worn than is probably healthy for people, because it is a protective mechanism. It's to keep, the environment out of their little ecosystem. And so as someone who actually has a preference to live in harmony with my environment and its inhabitants, and to live a healthy, vibrant life, then the materials that I work with and the products that I make, that's a part of that. And so that's why I'm very selective as to what I choose and how I treat that piece and the items that they are going to become. So if you felt something while watching this, like it actually just felt in alignment with what you've been feeling but hadn't actually put into thought, if something in you recognizes this quality of intention, then what's being made here may be for you. The vests are available as a bespoke commission piece. So if you are interested in having one made for you, then there's a link in the description to take you to where that conversation can be started, because it is not a matter of just picking off the shelf something that is created. I do actually want to converse with you about what it is you are after, so we can find something that's in alignment for you. And if you're a business owner whose brand story holds this quality of depth and wildness, there is also the opportunity to wear a piece during our brand portrait session. Recently, I had a lady who wore one of my wild hide vests. She wore a goat skin vest as a part of her warrior woman look. And that warrior woman look was the representation of her inner essence as her outer expression. She does breathwork facilitation, free diving and adventure hiking retreats. That's what she offers as a business. But when we went through the consultation process and talked about, what would represent her that people don't normally see in her, the warrior woman was actually what came through. So not only did she wear the goat skin vest, but we also sourced a beautiful timber bow that was gorgeously handcrafted, and we took photos in the forest with her wearing this vest, using this bow, wearing feather and leather earrings, and it was just that whole inner essence as outer expressions. If that is something you feel called to, working on a brand portrait story that connects you with your inner wildness, then like I said, vests can be available as a part of that too. I am also going to be making a men's vest from this selection of skins, because there are men who live this way too. And in the past, I have had just my vest as the example, and that's what women have ordered from. But I have had men ask if I would make them for men. And I have had a man ask me if I would do a different type of closure, which is what actually led me to looking for these toggles. It was in response to that. So that's going to be a new feature on the vest. So on that note, if you are interested in finding out more about what it is I create and what's behind it, there is another video in this series called The Hands That Create, and I will be leaving a link to that here too.